To continue, dear Rava, dear anyone who chances upon this, to continue where we'd reached in the previous installment, I find myself asking the question in order to pursue our project, our premise, investigating not only the history but the meaning of drama. I find myself suddenly more aware than ever that the shape that Greek drama takes, and it is our introduction ex nihilo, really out of nothing, coming from where we do not know, but coming so clamorously that it demanded that enormous numbers of people attend to it for a short period of time, for 3 days only. I was struck by the sense in which what it does is it strips away what we have of civilized life, what we had in Athens that was organized social life, an organized community, as opposed to the subject of many of the stories, the plays that are being told, which belong to the Homeric era, belong to the pre-classical era, belong to an era of adventure and combat, not to an age of great cities, although of course there were great cities, and Troy is one, and was one, perhaps. It seems likely that there was a Troy, but we have no clear sense that there was a decisive siege or a decisive battle that ended the supremacy of Troy in that corner of the Mediterranean. However, what we had once we had a city like Athens was somehow out of the celebration that Dionysus himself, his existence as a figure in the popular religion and imagination, demanded not just a festival, not just, let's just raise our glasses to Dionysus, that spirit of entrancement, of enchantment, of dream, of trance, of theatre, of mystery, of the return of the repressed, of the survival of the unconscious. The things that Dionysus came to represent, having started, if we believe Robert Graves, Dionysus, this is, having started as a minor mouse god in northern Greece. Graves traces the evolution, and I think gods, it's clear, came to prominence in the same way that movie stars or footballers or storytellers do in later Western tradition. They can come from very modest origins, and I think Dionysus came not in the space of a life or a generation, but by gradual accretion of importance. How he moved from being a mouse god to being the great figure of the dark side, as he was and as he still is in what he represents, is a long story for which you might have to consult Graves and at the same time consult any of the great scholars who think that Graves has it all wrong. But there Dionysus was, and in later times, life, not only in classical Greece but in our own world, has been looked at through a lens of a bifurcation of life into the bright day of Apollonian order and the fruitful dark disorder of Dionysus, feeding darker instincts, fueling our humanity through its ancient relation to the soil itself, rather than, as with Apollo, to the things that we build upon the soil to be stable and provide a fruitful day. Dionysus represented the underside of our life, really the Finnegan's Wake, if you think in terms of the works of James Joyce to the Ulysses, which is not entirely an Apollonian work. It has a great deal of Dionysiac dives into dark corners of the soul. So, but Finnegan's Wake was specifically intended by Joyce to map the dark underbelly, and to map the night, and to allow language to breed with itself as it does in dream, and reveal things about ourselves that we may not suspect, and which our daytime practices and our daytime language serve to obscure, so that we don't really know who we are. So Dionysus serves Athens and serves classical Greece as a spirit of potential disruption, and a spirit of return to those things that we do not yet understand, or have not tried to understand, or have tried not to understand, which is a very different thing. And this is the cause that theatre served, but it only served it for a very short time. So it was, in its way, the 3 days of the Festival of Dionysus, like some of the medieval Christian celebrations, which also turned ordered life on its head, and for a brief time the servant would be crowned as the master, and the master would serve him. A reminder of the intrinsic instability of life, the arbitrariness of life, which might have had any of us borne the son or the daughter of a lord, and the meaning of our identity and our birth is so obscure as to be a subject only for providence and destiny and fate to discuss. There's no justice about who we are born to. This is something that comes up in Sophocles' great play Oedipus Rex. And different societies and philosophies and religions have treated the matter of our birth differently. In Buddhism, is it we choose our parents, not the other way around? This is a splendid religion in which we are given the opportunity to take responsibility even for that thing that seems to be arbitrary, seems to be on the roulette wheel and belong to destiny and not to us. But we certainly experience doubt and darkness, and there was the festival of Dionysus, which could have been a one-day matter, but it wasn't. It was important enough. Maybe it only became important when the Athenians discovered what riches there were to be found in drama as a celebration of the spirit of Dionysus, who became the lord of drama, without whom drama would not exist. But which came first? If drama came first, it may be that it was thought a fit subject for Dionysus to rule over, a fit form of celebration of Dionysus, who was the lord of drunkenness, who was the lord of dream and trance. Everything that a play essentially is. A play is not really a debate. A play is not a court of law. A play is not a newspaper report. A play is a dreaming up of a human story. And maybe when, for whatever reason, members of the Athenian community who had a vision of themselves putting words in the mouth of some of these famous quasi-mythical characters from Greek history, as they began to do so, they found themselves composing something which could be offered as a tribute to Dionysus, and offered as something under his protection, the writing of plays. But there is the biggest gap of all in the history of drama. We don't know how that evolved. It arrives for us seemingly fully formed. So what it is, as regards the meaning, of drama, and not in this case its history, since we know that so poorly. In its meaning, it appears to be a necessary stripping away of, of how we have dressed our world to make it tick. Stripping it back and suggesting to us all in the huge audience there that underneath our civilized existence lies still the barbarian that is man. And that animal, with his and her rapacity and needs and desires, who is still there, needs to be recognized if we are to move forwards in a spirit of self-understanding. In a way, we leap straight from the Greeks to the 18th century project, the very concept of progress, which did not dominate the Middle Ages, was not really the driving principle that people understood in human endeavor to bring things to light. Human endeavor for centuries was a matter of God's permission to exist and serve him and be saved, or not. But the 18th century refused to accept that dichotomy and proclaimed that we were wedded to a concept of sense, common sense, reason, and progress. And the Greeks too were looking for a reasonable world. They do not, in these great plays, announce that the world is empty of meaning. In many ways, if you jump forwards from Athenian tragedy to Shakespearean tragedy, the tragedy of Othello is without any closure in the form of a way forwards, how not to be Othello or how not to be Iago. It presents as an insoluble problem, human behavior. Of course, there are ways of rationalizing Othello and seeing that between them, the colonial masters, the Venetians, and their slave hero, Othello, with whom they could never be on a par, and who was forever the slave trying to pretend that he was a true aristocrat, and in his ignorance was so easily duped that he lost his life and his reason. And you could see Othello as having a hopeful skeleton inside it, the hope that we no longer have people of a different colored skin to be employed, even in a glorified way, and to be foreigners within their own heroic, glorified success, as Othello fatally was. This would not have been a Greek play. The Greeks are at pains to seek a way out. They are aimed always at reason behind that will be exposed by the unreason that is the subject of the play. The unreasoning behavior, the unreasoning savagery that must be laid bare, presented on the stage to remind us that we are still savages, and look through that for hope, a way to reconcile law and religious observance and family, as in the Antigone, to reconcile the criminal, as in Aeschylus, the parricide, the matricide. Well, Orestes was not a parricide, but his mother was. These archetypal and fatal crimes. To find a way to not let them destroy the continuity of rational existence. This was a serious and rational purpose that we find in drama. And the means, the alarming and horrible human behavior that we see on stage and are still performing in order to address that barbarity in ourselves. That was not presented in a grieving way as a barbarity that we would never be able to extirpate. In fact, it's there precisely for us to find a way to heal and to find a way of avoiding in social and individual life. So, more on this, I think, before we are able to escape the orbit of the Greeks. We need to look at what physical shape drama took in those early days and how it still inhabits what we think of as drama, and how it defines for us what drama does and does not need, the latter being, I think, the key term. And I've exceeded my 15 minutes. All the same, I look forward to my next one. And it's been a pleasure talking to you. Stay warm, stay safe. Bye-bye.